Kanda, a salaryman, finally finds a rare moment of tranquility at his desk. It all kicked off when a colleague enthusiastically suggested an anime game. He became utterly engrossed, immersing himself in the game's universe and characters. So dedicated was he that he proudly proclaimed he had completed the entire game. Meet Kanda Shinichi, a 33-year-old office worker content with his life. Yet his evenings were consumed by work dinners, and he gamed until dawn. Before long, his body had been pushed to its absolute limits. His exhausted body finally gave in, collapsing right in the street. As his vision dimmed, the last image he recalled was of his deceased mother. He awakens in an unfamiliar bed, now inhabiting the body of a young boy. Gradually, he regains consciousness, recalling his collapse, and gazes at an opulent chandelier. Horrified, he catches his reflection in a mirror, seeing a young boy's face. In a panic, he dashes through the grand hallway, feeling his new body is impossibly small. A maid bursts in, cheerfully announcing that Master Rid has awakened, leaving him utterly confused. Surrounded by worried staff, a stern man informs him he collapsed unexpectedly in the garden. The man introduces himself as Garn, the head butler, his face a mix of relief and scrutiny. Putting on a brave front, he offers a bright smile, apologizing for the trouble caused. His polite apology prompts a deep bow from the butler, while the maids whisper in surprise. He tries to lighten the mood, asking Garn to speak to him casually as before. Suddenly, the sharp chime of a bell jolts him, a crucial piece of the puzzle falling into place. The name RID triggers a painful flood of memories, blending his past life with the game's realm. He remembers the cast of the anime games, realizing he's now a minor character named Ridbaldia. The vast estate confirms his worst fears. He's been reborn into the game as a side character. Without delay, he rings the service bell, eager to gather intel on his current predicament. He greets the maid with a charming smile, pretending to need simple confirmation. He tries to confirm his age, guessing 7, but is shocked to learn he's only 6. He shifts to geography, asking the maid to point out their country and family's territory on a map. He discovers the Baldia family maintains political neutrality and lives in the mansion with his mother and sister. With all the pieces falling into place, he accepts his fate, though the maid grows concerned for his well-being. He quickly feigns a headache to wrap up the conversation, thanking the startled maid for her assistance. Suddenly, he grabs the maid's arm, panic etched on his face as she gasps his name in surprise. He apologizes profusely, realizing the original Rid must have been quite a handful for the staff. With a dazzling smile, he asks for her name, and she introduces herself as Donai. His formal yet charming demeanor completely wins over the flustered maid, who finds him incredibly cute. The next morning, a cheerful Donai wakes him, now seemingly his personal attendant. He opens his eyes, a slight blush creeping onto his cheeks as he processes everything. His adult mind short-circuits when she offers to help him dress, and he bashfully insists he can do it himself. Now dressed, he's led to an opulent dining hall, utterly astonished by the lavish nobleman's breakfast. He inquires about his family, learning his father is away and his mother is unwell before deciding to check on someone named Melty. As he approaches his mother's room, he recalls that Nanali Baldea was never mentioned in the game, leaving him curious about this unfamiliar character. He reaches his mother's chambers, but a strange apprehension halts him at the imposing door. Noticing his unease, Donai suggests they return later, but he brushes off her concern with a cheerful facade. Donai reveals a shocking truth. The original Rid had been avoiding his mother since her illness. He ruminates, trying to grasp the rift between mother and son, but comes up completely empty. Upon entering, he's met with the gentle smile of his mother, Nanali, who looks genuinely delighted to see him. The sight of her face sends him reeling. She resembles his late mother from his previous life. An overwhelming wave of grief and longing from his past life crashes over him, leaving him breathless. A sudden coughing fit from his mother jolts him back to reality, and he rushes to her side in a panic. Taking her hand, he reassures his worried mother, who is more concerned about his collapse than her own health. With a determined smile, he confidently declares he's fine, embracing his new role as the Margrave's son and his beloved mother's child. He assures his beaming mother that he'll come back soon, his face hardening with determination as he departs. Now filled with fierce resolve, Rid confronts Garn, demanding to know what afflicts his mother. When the butler hesitates, Rid seizes him, his youthful face betraying a desperate adult's urgency, vowing to persist. Under Rid's relentless questioning, Garn finally discloses the dire diagnosis echoing through the vast hall: magic-powered depletion syndrome. The disease's name strikes Rid like a physical blow, leaving him dazed and perspiring. Garn admits he violated protocol, clarifying that magic serves as the life essence for the beings in this realm. He explains the terrifying reality of the illness, a terminal affliction where the body loses its ability to regenerate magic, leading to a slow demise. Rid instantly links this to a status effect from the game, realizing he lacks crucial information and hurries to the library. On his path, he encounters a young girl clutching a bouquet, instantly recognizing her as his little sister, Melty. Spotting her shyly hiding, he adopts a charming, brotherly demeanor, inviting her to explore picture books to coax her out. Thrilled by his invitation, Melty rushes to shut the door after Rid assures her he genuinely wants to read together. Now settled on the couch, Rid begins narrating a tale about an owl to his enthralled little sister. A memory surfaces of a younger Rid filled with joy as he doted on his newborn sister. Yet, his mother's illness shattered his world, causing the original Rid to lash out in fear and confusion. His misplaced anger and sorrow tragically drove a wedge between him and his younger sister. He now realizes their bond had deteriorated to the point where they even stopped sharing meals. Snapping back to reality, he's taken aback when Melty apologizes for mimicking his avoidance of their mother. She promises to stop copying him, declaring she's a smart girl who understands now. Eager to bridge the gap, he suggests she call him by his nickname, Mel, leaving her momentarily speechless. She happily agrees, explaining that since their mother uses that name for him, it feels right for her to use it too. Melty beams, sharing that using his special nickname makes her feel special as well. Rid expresses gratitude for her sweet words, reinforcing their newly mended connection. Storytime proves too soothing, and Melty soon drifts off to sleep against her brother's shoulder. He calls for a maid, and Donai appears instantly, ready to assist. Garn arrives to find Denai gently cradling the sleeping Melty, inquiring about their time together. After Rid explains, Garn sincerely thanks him, asking him to keep looking after his sister. Rid swells with pride, thinking to himself that of course he would care for his precious little sister. Garn notes that Rid seems like a different person since his collapse, sending Rid into a silent panic. He attempts to steady himself, realizing his new demeanor starkly contrasts the original Rid's behavior. Alone in the library, he contemplates his interactions with his mother and sister, clarity about his next steps emerging. He recalls the game's worst-case scenario, being condemned and exiled alongside the villain. Determined to change his fate, he sits at his desk, ready to devise a plan for survival. The sheer impossibility of the task overwhelms him, and he grips his head in a moment of sheer panic. His primary objective is clear: befriend the main characters to steer clear of the game's deadly pitfalls. Realizing he can't depend on anyone else, he resolves to become self-reliant and build his own fortune. A significant obstacle looms. He's trapped in a remote area far from the capital where the main events unfold. But before he can even ponder the game's storyline, he knows there's a more urgent issue at hand. He finally comprehends that the original Rid's actions stemmed from a desperate, heartbreaking love for his sick mother. With a gentle smile, he acknowledges that the boy whose body he occupies was, at heart, a kind child. He concludes that mending the fractured family torn apart by his mother's illness is the true first step toward securing his future. A memory from his past life resurfaces, a serene meal shared with his cherished mother. The memory shifts to a darker time, her final moments filled with soft apologies as he wept beside her. He clenches his fist, vowing to avoid the same regrets that haunted him at his mother's grave. With renewed determination, he slams a book down, declaring he will absolutely save his mother this time. He examines his new identity, Rid Baldia, a strikingly beautiful 6-year-old with silver hair and purple eyes. He also discovers a cheat-like ability, perfect eidetic memory, enabling him to absorb any book in a single read. As he devours books, he's astonished to find that many plants and minerals mirror those from his previous world. This sparks an idea for a potential business venture, but his thoughts are interrupted by Garn announcing his father, Reiner, has returned. He stands at the end of a grand hall, prepared to meet his father, the Margrave Reiner Baldia, for the very first time. Having gathered his courage, he knocks on his father's door, hoping his important proposal will be heard. Rid enters the office facing his formidable father, Margrave Reiner Baldia. Without any small talk, his father inquires about his well-being, mentioning the recent incident in the garden. Seated in the oversized chair, Rid appears small yet composed as he states he has two specific requests. Intrigued, the Margrave leans in, eager to hear what his son has in mind. He confidently presents his first request, the opportunity to learn magic and swordplay, a path not taken by the original Rid. He remembers that Rid's character in the game is a growth type, a hidden talent with immense potential. He recalls Rid's aptitude for all-element magic, a skill most players dismissed due to his weak beginnings, but one he personally excelled at. His father remains skeptical, highlighting his son's past erratic behavior and questioning his current state. He admits that witnessing his mother's health decline had once thrown him into deep despair. But now, with a fresh perspective, he asserts that despair achieves nothing. He must grow strong enough to support his mother. His father consents to find tutors, then inquires about the second request. Rid tightens his small fist, bracing himself for his next bold proposition. He then presents his second request, personal funds to manage as he sees fit. Rid explains he has business ideas, but his father scoffs at the thought of financing a venture without solid plans. The Margrave's gaze sharpens, demanding to understand the real motive behind this audacious request. With a charming smile, Rid frames it as a gamble, an investment not in an idea, but in him. He knows he's taking a chance, wagering everything on the hope that a father's heart can be swayed by his son's passion. His gamble pays off, and Rid jumps up in sheer joy, thanking his father for his faith. Reiner sighs, agreeing to provide the funds, though he's puzzled by his son's lofty aspirations. Just as the meeting seems to wrap up, Rid states he has one last request for his astonished father. He asks his father to join them for meals, hoping to bridge the gap in their relationship. The Margrave hesitates, his attention caught by the affectionate nickname Rid uses for his sister. Later at the dinner table, Rid and Melty enjoy a joyful meal, their bond evidently strengthened. Their father surprises Melty by asking if he can also use her special nickname. The family now gathers for meals in the expansive dining hall, a sight not seen in ages. Melty vehemently protests, declaring that nickname belongs solely to her mother and brother. Unfazed, Rid announces his next plan, a personal tour of the family's territory. His father is left speechless by the 6-year-old's lordly request, dropping his utensils in shock. After a brief pause, the Margrave agrees and instructs Garn to prepare a carriage for the excursion. Rid meets his new knight escorts, Rubens and Diana, who are ready to accompany him. As the carriage bumps along, Rid gazes out at the vast frontier, known for its rich soil and thriving agriculture. He remembers that the flourishing olive production in the area was actually his father's brilliant idea. Brought back to reality, Diana announces their impending arrival, though this trip is far from a mere tour. This isn't just sightseeing. Armed with his father's investment, he's focused on the territory's largest town. As they near the bustling town, he realizes this is where his grand business venture will take off. Arriving in the vibrant town square, Rid can't contain his excitement, absorbing the lively scene with wide eyes. His escorts quickly remind him to stay close, warning him against straying alone in the crowded streets. Diana looks worriedly at their destination, but Rid reassures her with a bright and confident smile. With unwavering determination, he pushes open the doors to a specific establishment, his knights watching closely. They are greeted by an enthusiastic catgirl maid, leaving Rid momentarily taken aback by her appearance. The maid recognizes him from a letter he sent to Christie, confirming this meeting was arranged in advance. A tall and graceful woman introduces herself as Christie Saffron, the head of the Christie Company. Rid internally acknowledges this is the elf merchant Garn mentioned, the only one operating in the Baldia territory. Now, in an opulent reception room, Christie politely asks if he's certain about making his knight escorts wait outside. He insists on privacy for their conversation, eager to dive into his business proposal with a confident grin. He begins his pitch by asking the merchant if she's familiar with products like skin lotion or hair rinse. He recalls his library research, where he was thrilled to discover that aloe, a key ingredient from his world, also exists here. His earlier attempts to explain skincare to Denai were met with utter confusion, as the concept was foreign to her. He learned that while aloe grows everywhere, it's only used for wounds, with its incredible skincare properties completely unknown. Christie reveals that while she is aware of such products, they are deemed ultra-rare luxury items far beyond most people's reach. He discloses his strategy to create affordable skincare products, utilizing insights from his previous life to develop prototypes. The elf merchant listens intently, her astute business instincts already kicking in. He inquires if she's encountered similar items before, and she acknowledges that his concept is entirely unique in this market. With a dramatic gesture, he unveils his prototypes, leaving the experienced merchant astonished by his readiness. He encourages her to try the product, and she tentatively applies the unfamiliar lotion to her hand. Her eyes widen in sheer amazement as she experiences the lotion's immediate and remarkable effects. The typically composed elf is so exhilarated by the product's promise that she struggles to contain her enthusiasm. She admits her own battle with dry skin, proclaiming this product is a dream realized and will surely sell. Pleased with her response, he hands her the second prototype, a hair rinse for her to try later. Completely convinced, she insists he use a nickname and fervently declares they must launch these products at once. With the skincare agreement finalized, Rid reveals he has even more business concepts to secure his future. He then assigns the well-connected merchant a personal and urgent mission to locate 2 rare herbs for his mother's remedy. Christie confesses she initially overlooked his letter, but now recognizes the sharp intellect behind the youthful facade. What began as indulging a noble son has transformed into a golden chance to grow her family's business empire. Brimming with entrepreneurial zeal, Christie tells her maid Emma that thrilling times are on the horizon. As he steps outside, his night escorts greet him, eager to hear about the results of his meeting. R.I.D. beams with triumph, confirming that the partnership was a resounding success and their future looks bright. His escorts appear relieved, with Diana now carrying the case of his groundbreaking prototypes. While walking through the market, his attention is suddenly captured by a small cloaked figure weaving through the crowd. The sight serves as a stark reminder of his vulnerable situation, igniting his resolve to escape the bleak future ahead. He observes the cloaked girl, who seems lost and anxiously scanning her surroundings. Rid approaches the startled girl, his concern clear, as he asks if she requires assistance. He introduces himself as part of the local lord's entourage, offering his help to the disoriented girl. She confirms his suspicions, explaining that she has become separated from her companion in the throng. Rid offers to lead her back if she knows where to go, but she appears uncertain about her next move. At that moment, a uniformed man spots the girl and rushes toward them, visibly relieved. With a charming grin, Rid remarks that aiding a lady in distress is simply the honorable thing to do. The man bows deeply in appreciation, but Rid humbly requests he raise his head. His gallant demeanor leaves the girl's companion speechless, while she gazes at him with newfound admiration. An elegant elf woman appears, her immense relief revealing that the lost girl is, in fact, a princess. Back at their lodgings, the elf attendant questions the contemplative princess about her distracted demeanor. The young princess is utterly smitten, lamenting that she never even learned the charming boy's name. Her attendant teasingly suggests it might be love, much to the flustered princess's denial. Meanwhile, in the carriage, Rubens asks Rid if he regrets not asking for the name of the girl he just saved. The day's excitement has completely drained him, and Rid has dozed off against a surprised Diana. While Rubens smiles at the sight, Diana feels flustered by how endearing her young charge is. His escorts decide it's best to return to the mansion and allow the exhausted boy to rest. Upon his arrival, Rid is promptly informed that his new magic tutor has come. The tutor, a sharp-looking woman named Sandra, introduces herself with a confident smile, ready to start his lessons. Rid eagerly accepts her guidance, and the two formally agree to embark on his journey into the realm of magic. In the library, Sandra kicks off the session by asking if Rid has any previous experience with magic. Rid internally celebrates, recalling from the game that his character possesses a hidden talent for all magical elements. He plays it cool, telling his new tutor he's only ever read about magic in books. Sandra begins the lesson explaining that magic is powered by converting one's own life force into energy. She passionately vows to guide him through the intricate process, urging him to place his complete trust in her. Deciding a demonstration is necessary, she suggests they head to the training grounds, and Rid eagerly agrees. His sheer excitement charms Sandra, who privately notes his adorable enthusiasm for magic. In a grand training hall, Sandra prepares to showcase to her young student what a true mage can accomplish. She unleashes a colossal fireball, showcasing her formidable power with a dazzling explosion. Rid is left utterly speechless, his eyes sparkling with wonder at the breathtaking display of magic. He rushes to his new mentor, overflowing with excitement about her stunning magic display. Sandra, usually so composed, is completely taken aback by his enthusiastic compliments. Her joy at being called a teacher makes her giddy, leaving Rid puzzled. Regaining her composure, Sandra reveals that advanced mages can cast spells silently, further astonishing Rid. She tells him to start with the fundamentals, and Rid eagerly clenches his fists, ready to channel his life force into magic. Sandra manages his expectations, reminding him that mastering silent casting is a long-term goal. Despite his eagerness, Rid finds it incredibly difficult, struggling to feel his magic at all. Noticing his frustration, Sandra offers to teach him a simple trick to help him grasp it. She instructs him to extend his hands, and as she takes them, Rid feels a sudden wave of unease. A powerful rush of magic surges into him, and he gasps in shock as Sandra reassures him this is part of the lesson. He experiences a peculiar sensation as something deep within him is pulled through his palms. Sandra smirks, urging him to hold on a bit longer as magical energy crackles between their hands. Rid blushes in pain, realizing his new sadistic teacher is relishing his discomfort. The torturous session finally concludes, leaving him gasping on the floor as Sandra coolly announces the lesson is over. She describes this forced method as a shortcut, allowing him to instantly feel the magic conversion. Sandra formally names the technique Forced Magic Conversion Awakening, apologizing for the rough start. Still rattled, Rid processes the information, sensing there must be a significant downside to this approach. He jumps back, accusing his mentor of neglecting to mention the intense pain involved beforehand. She simply beams at him, admitting that catching him off guard was far more fun. Now that he's felt his life force, she tells him to attempt converting it into magic independently. He tightens his fists, concentrating hard on compressing his life force into magical energy. A sudden aura of power envelops him, and Sandra confirms he has successfully summoned his magic. She then instructs him to visualize her fireball, aim for the target, and cast the spell. Rid shuts his eyes, perfectly envisioning a swirling fire orb in his mind. He thrusts his hand forward, unleashing a powerful vortex of dark energy at the target. His mentor can only stare in disbelief as the unexpected spell hurtles across the room. After the spell strikes true, Rid leaps into the air, thrilled that he actually succeeded. Sandra is left utterly speechless by her student's astonishing and unprecedented progress. Rid himself is amazed, admitting he never thought he would master spellcasting on his very first day. His mentor explains that casting spells typically requires endless practice, making his achievement even more remarkable. Sandra commends his vivid imagination, suggesting he might be a genuine prodigy. He goes on to flawlessly cast the spell multiple times, leaving his mentor completely astounded by his raw talent. The intense practice exhausts him, and he realizes he got carried away, draining his magical energy. His mentor explains that while individuals are born with varying magic levels, consistent training can enhance one's power. Rid inquires about recovery methods, only to discover that natural rest is the sole way to restore magic. She reveals that although many have attempted to create magic recovery potions, all efforts throughout history have failed. This contradicts his gaming knowledge, making him question why the magic potions he used in the game don't exist here. Sandra then educates him on the two primary categories of magic, elemental and special, revealing her Forced Awakening technique is a unique spell she devised. The thought of creating his own unique spells fills Rid with excitement about the possibilities that lie ahead. For now, his mentor advises him to concentrate on mastering the basics, and Rid eagerly agrees to put in the effort. Rid reflects on how his growing abilities are making his new life genuinely enjoyable. His swordsmanship training is about to commence as his knight escort Rubens rushes to meet him on the grounds. Rid's warm-up stretches completely confuse Rubens, who has never witnessed such movements before. Rubens explains that while they run drills, they don't engage in these peculiar pre-exercise rituals. With a knowing smile, Rid realizes that the concept of warm-up exercises is another piece of knowledge missing from this world. Despite his past life's lack of athleticism, he grips a wooden sword, understanding he must master combat to survive. Rubens compliments his natural stance and suggests they move on to practice swings, much to Rid's delight. He takes his position and begins practicing his swings, getting accustomed to the weight of the wooden sword. Seeing his potential, Rubens invites the young boy to strike at him from any angle he desires. Filled with determination, Rid charges forward, ready to test his skills against the seasoned knight. He charges ahead, but the experienced knight effortlessly parries his strike. During their sparring session, Rid notices an unexpected grace in his own movements. His new physique feels surprisingly agile, making each sword swing exhilarating. A self-satisfied grin appears as he realizes Rid's body is a top-tier model, excelling in both intellect and combat. The training wraps up, leaving Rid gasping for breath, but Diana praises him, recognizing his vast potential. Rubens jokingly claims the boy couldn't land a single blow, which only frustrates Rid, who starts plotting his revenge. Switching tactics, Rid casually mentions that his 2 escorts from the night are childhood friends. His innocent inquiry sends the usually calm Rubens into a flustered panic. With a mischievous grin, Rid goes for the jugular, bluntly asking the knight if he has feelings for Diana. Rid smirks, pointing out the knight's flushed cheeks, revealing he knows the staff gossips about his unspoken affections. The direct hit leaves Rubens flustered, completely losing his cool. From a distance, Rid observes as Diana approaches the sulking knight to check on him. Diana discloses that Rubens has a soft spot for her, then fixes Rid with a sharp gaze, demanding to know what he said. Rid cheekily labels Rubens a coward, immediately sensing the atmosphere chill as Diana's expression darkens. Diana's friendly demeanor shatters, replaced by a terrifying rage aimed at the now frozen Rubens. She violently yanks the stunned knight by his collar, shaking him while demanding answers. Her fury dissipates as she sweetly dismisses Rid, then calmly requests a private conversation, her smile hiding a clear threat. Feeling utterly intimidated, Rid can only stammer an agreement to her request. As they walk away, Rid learns 2 vital lessons: never cross Diana and stay out of others' romantic dramas. Later, Rid puts on an animated show, reading a storybook to his enthralled sister and smiling mother. Melty Beams praises her brother's theatrical flair and his knack for different character voices. He's just glad Melty is having fun. Even as she pouts about his improvement, he playfully scolds her with a special voice. Their mother watches with a warm smile, surprised by his hidden talent, likening his performance to that of a professional actor. As his mother affectionately pats Melty's head, Rid's expression shifts to one of quiet, determined concern. Once again, he's reminded of the harsh reality. His mother is battling an incurable terminal illness, a secret few know. He observes that while his mother appears more lively than usual, her pale complexion is a constant reminder of her condition. Announcing a guest's arrival, Rid takes his leave as his mother and sister cheerfully wave goodbye. The elf merchant Christie proudly displays the prototypes, announcing that their commercialization plans are finally coming together. His face lights up with pure, unfiltered joy at the news of their business success. After countless meetings, Christie has taken charge, swiftly managing the logistics of ingredient cultivation and factory setup that he couldn't handle alone. Christie reveals her investment was a game-changer, while Rid's thoughts shift to ramping up production. Christie raises the need for customer education on proper usage, but her talk of health management leaves him baffled. He then introduces the groundbreaking idea of different skin types, emphasizing that product compatibility will differ. His expression darkens as he stresses the need to prevent dangerous counterfeit products that could harm users. He outlines his master plan, including after-sales service, branding with the Baldia crest, and creating an exclusive retail network through her company. The elf merchant is completely taken aback by his next suggestion, making her the official spokesperson for the entire line. He beams, declaring she's the perfect fit for the role. A flashback reveals he previously pitched this to his father, who was so impressed he suggested presenting the products to the monarchy. This sets up Christie's most critical mission, presenting the products as an offering to the Magnoria Empire. He then explains his plan for Christie to accompany his father to the capital as the official representative, a move that piques the Margrave's interest. Christie considers his proposal, admitting that an elegant woman like herself would indeed be the ideal model. Rid elaborates on his clever marketing strategy. Her beauty will entice men to buy the products as gifts. The Margrave is astonished by his 6-year-old son's business savvy, but ultimately agrees to the plan. Just as their meeting wraps up, Christy reveals she has one more surprise for the young lord. She presents him with the incredibly rare moonlight grass, one of the herbs he desperately needs for his mother's cure. Overwhelmed with emotion, Rid clutches the precious herb, a fresh wave of hope washing over him. He bows deeply, expressing his heartfelt gratitude to the astonished merchant. Christy reassures him that her search for the second herb is ongoing and asks for his patience. A few days later, his father and Christy depart for the capital, carrying the revolutionary products as an offering to the royal family. With the skincare line launched, Rid immediately shifts his attention to developing his next innovative product. He sets up a business arrangement where his territory grows the ingredients, while Christie's company manages production and sales, ensuring he receives a share. With the moonlight grass in hand, he turns his attention to crafting a potion for magical recovery, convinced it will aid his mother's healing. His aspirations hit a snag as he slumps at his desk, bemoaning his utter lack of knowledge in pharmaceuticals. Garn proposes reaching out to his magic instructor, Sandra, who seems genuinely intrigued by his new venture. Rid shows the rare herb to Sandra, detailing its legendary power to restore magical energy. Sandra is utterly amazed, confirming that the herb is indeed the fabled moonlight grass she believed was merely a myth. She then shares a startling coincidence. She once led a research institute in the capital focused on creating that exact potion. A flashback reveals her past, directing a team of elite mages in the capital, all striving for the impossible task of developing a magic recovery potion. In those earlier days, Sandra grows wary when a vital delivery for her research fails to arrive on time. Her inquiry is cut short when a maid announces the unexpected arrival of a rare guest at the castle. In the past, Sandra strides through an opulent hall, frustrated that her research has hit yet another dead end. The guest turns out to be a malevolent noblewoman who comments on Sandra's perpetual agitation. Sandra realizes her substantial budget and carefully selected team have sparked envy among other nobles. With no progress and dwindling staff, she had no choice but to resign, taking full blame for the project's failure. The noblewoman cruelly reminds the disgraced Sandra that failing to follow a royal command is a crime punishable by exile. Just when she thought it couldn't get worse, Rid's father appeared, offering her a role as a private tutor. She wraps up her tale explaining how this led her to the Baldia territory. Rid realizes he's asking his mentor to revisit the very research that caused her so much pain. Yet his determination remains unshaken, a fierce resolve igniting in his gaze. He shares his mother's condition, pleading with Sandra to assist him in crafting a recovery potion to extend her life. He earnestly implores Sandra, emphasizing that her knowledge is crucial for the potion's creation. A memory of his father's kindness flashes in her mind, prompting her to resolve to repay that kindness. With a determined grin, Sandra agrees to assist, and Rid joyfully shakes her hand in appreciation. Now reignited with a researcher's zeal, she accepts his terms, ready to tackle the impossible once again. Rid reveals that all prior research on the herb has been lost, making their new endeavor a gamble. As she prepares to leave with the precious herb, Rid halts her, needing to say one last thing. She teasingly reminds him to call her Teacher Sandra during their lessons, despite their new partnership. Rid chuckles at her request, while Sandra smugly relishes her return to the research world. He gazes out the window, pondering how his father and Christy are faring on their mission in the capital. Meanwhile, in the capital, a tense and anxious Christy is escorted by imperial knights. The empress is so impressed that she wishes to purchase the rights to the products for the entire empire. Inside, Christy is internally screaming Rid's name, realizing the immense scale of his ambition. The scene flashes back to their journey, with Reiner asking a nervous Christy if she's prepared for the capital. Christy asserts her readiness for this monumental opportunity, while Reiner cautions her about the capital's perils. Upon arrival, Christy is utterly overwhelmed by the vastness of the imperial capital. The narration reveals the capital as a colossal, heavily fortified fortress city. The city is shielded by a double wall system that separates the noble district from the common areas. Their carriage is delayed at a checkpoint, with Christy noting the inspection is taking an unusually long time. A young girl with authority appears, suspiciously demanding to inspect their offering. Reiner steps in, vouching for Christy and intimidating the guard into allowing them to pass. Inside their lodgings, Christy and Emma are startled by a knight peering through their window. As they stroll through the palace, Reiner explains that the guard was a subordinate of their rival, Earl Roland. Reiner apologizes for not forewarning her about the political maneuvering, admitting he underestimated their opponent's audacity. Their discussion is interrupted by the arrival of the boisterous Earl Roland himself. The Earl condescendingly comments on their lengthy journey before Christie formally introduces herself. He then leans in uncomfortably close, his sleazy grin revealing his ulterior motives as he mentions rumors about her. The Earl mocks her with a false rumor that she was expelled from her family's company, attempting to undermine her credibility. Reiner observes calmly, realizing the Earl is spreading unfounded rumors and that Emma is more than just an attendant. She's a true ally. The Earl intensifies his insults, using a derogatory term for her beastkin, leaving Christie speechless with fury. Christie's composure finally breaks, and she clenches her fist, declaring that while she can tolerate personal attacks, insulting her friend is unacceptable. Reiner advances, his demeanor icy as he tells the Earl his actions are shameful and affront to the Empress herself. The flustered Earl stammers an apology before making a quick exit, unable to withstand the Margrave's power. Later, Reiner remarks that Earl Roland is a crude individual motivated solely by greed for power and wealth. Christie comforts her weeping maid, assuring Emma that she has done nothing wrong, and the Earl is now barred from her presence. A palace maid arrives to guide them, telling Christie not to fret, as the Empress is quite reasonable. Christie takes a deep breath and kneels, steeling herself for the important royal audience ahead. They step into the grand throne room where other nobles are already gathered, greeted by a commanding voice. The Empire's rulers are revealed, Emperor Arwen Magnoria and Empress Matilda Magnoria, seated regally on their thrones. The Emperor acknowledges Reiner's presence, his gaze landing on the bowing elf merchant beside him. Reiner formally presents Christie Saffron, daughter of a baron from a nearby kingdom, piquing the Emperor's curiosity. The Emperor notes her recent elevation to nobility, having previously known her merely as a merchant's child. He subtly chastises Earl Roland, implying that his earlier treatment of a noble's daughter was inappropriate. The court ladies murmur among themselves as Christie clenches her fist, enduring their intense scrutiny. The Empress impatiently cuts through the tension, insisting on seeing the products right away. Christie formally showcases the elegant vials containing the groundbreaking skincare prototypes. While the noblemen appear indifferent, the Empress and her ladies show clear interest. To demonstrate their effectiveness, Christie confidently offers her own radiant hair for the Empress's evaluation. Taken aback by the bold proposal, the Empress gestures for her lady-in-waiting to come forward and inspect Christie's hair. The attendant is amazed by the silky texture, while Christie asserts that only a woman can truly appreciate the product's worth. Earl Roland loudly protests, accusing Christie of putting the Empress at risk with her untested concoction. The Empress silences the Earl with a piercing glare, reminding him that his opinion was not solicited. Her sharp retort leaves Earl Roland and his companions utterly stunned and embarrassed. The Empress then demonstrates the lotion herself, pondering its potential to win over every woman in the castle. After a lady-in-waiting praises the results, the Empress declares it the finest product she has ever encountered. Thoroughly impressed, the Empress makes a remarkable offer to purchase the exclusive rights for the entire empire. Christie is left utterly speechless, struggling to grasp the enormity of the Empress's proposal. Her maid, Emma, attempts to bring her back to reality as the court awaits a response. Reiner smoothly steps in, clarifying that the decision isn't solely hers, but ultimately leaves the final choice to her. Overwhelmed, Christie turns to Reiner for assistance, feeling completely inadequate in the face of such a monumental negotiation. A flashback reveals Rid had already prepared her for this moment, outlining a plan that instilled her with the confidence to either walk away or secure their future. Following Rid's strategy, Christie counters with an offer of exclusive priority rights just for the Empress. While her court ladies are taken aback by the refusal, the Empress graciously accepts the new terms. The Empress asserts that Christie is correct. Forcibly seizing the rights would ultimately damage the Empire's reputation. The Emperor supports her, declaring that the production rights will officially belong to the Christie Company and the Baldia territory. The Empress gives Christie a playful wink, leaving the merchants astonished by how smoothly the negotiation wrapped up. A sudden realization strikes Christie as she glances between the composed Margrave and the smiling Empress. She finally comprehends that the entire negotiation was a meticulously orchestrated performance. The Empress's true aim was never merely to utilize the products, but to secure the manufacturing rights from the very start. The Empress had simply wielded her authority to extract the promise she desired, leaving Earl Roland utterly defeated by his public humiliation. Back in their lodgings, an utterly drained Christie collapses onto the sofa, the day's stress finally overwhelming her. Raynor sips his tea, reminding Christie he had warned her about the dangers of the capital just as a maid announces the Empress's arrival. The Empress herself enters the room, accompanied by Raynor, and apologizes for the unexpected intrusion. Now seated, Christie and Emma find themselves in a private meeting with the Empire's most powerful woman. Raynor explains the political maneuvering, apologizing for using her as a pawn in their struggle against his rivals. It's revealed that the Empress was aware of the products beforehand, but a gag order was imposed to control the information flow. This secrecy transformed the product rights into a highly sought-after prize, igniting fierce competition among the nobles of the capital. Christie smiles, realizing that the public audience was a strategic move to put the greedy nobles in their place. With the Empress's public endorsement, Earl Roland and his allies are left seething, their schemes completely thwarted. The Empress then dismisses the men to discuss business, playfully suggesting her attendant have a chat with Emma. No sooner are they alone than Christie excitedly mentions the exclusive rights they secured, already plotting their next move. The Empress discloses her underlying intentions, steering the dialogue toward a critical political issue. She then shocks Raynor by stating that his son, Rid, is the sole viable candidate for a significant alliance. The focus shifts to a side story depicting a drowsy Rid yawning as he prepares for sleep. Occasionally, he dreams of the original Rid's experiences, reliving the moment the young boy fell into despair over his mother. In his dream, a younger, more innocent Rid proudly presents a butterfly he has captured to his mother. His mother expresses her gratitude for the beautiful sight, then observes as he releases the butterfly, questioning why he set it free. She explains that confining the delicate creature would be cruel, leading to its quick demise, a concept the boy struggles to understand. She describes life as the force enabling them to move and communicate, while death signifies the moment they can never reunite. The frightened boy inquires if she too will die, but she comforts him with a warm smile, assuring him she will always be near. He remembers the solemn vow she made, a memory that fortifies his determination in the present. He recalls that, similar to the original Rid, his past self was merely a simple boy who delighted in catching bugs. His daydream is interrupted as Melty rushes toward him, a wave of familiarity washing over him. Melty excitedly displays a tiny bird she discovered in the garden, its parent hovering protectively nearby. As he compliments her adorable find, Melty eagerly asks her brother if she can take care of it. He sees their mother's likeness in Melty's features, confident she will grasp the lesson he is about to impart. He gently explains that the bird's parents are likely searching for it, and they should return it to its natural habitat. His profound words lead a curious Melty to pose a simple yet profound question: what is life? In the sunlit garden, he prepares to respond as she releases the small bird into the wild. The chapter wraps up with a stylish image of Rid and his tutor Sandra, poised for their next challenge. The narrative transitions to a somber metaphor depicting his mother's condition as a relentless draining loss, akin to water leaking from a cracked glass. Her illness struck unexpectedly, and within days she was too frail to stand unaided. She experiences a constant feeling of depletion, as if her very essence is gradually fading away. The dread of not waking up torments her, fueled by memories of Melty's anguish over the illness. She observes Rid's recent transformation, commenting to Melty on how he has become as calm and composed as an adult. Melty's cheerful tales of Rid's kindness bolster her determination. She can't afford to give up while her son is trying so hard. With renewed resolve, her mother, Nanalie, pledges to battle her illness with all her strength. Meanwhile, Rid savors a moment of tranquility under the warm sun and clear skies. Inspired by his father's efforts, he decides it's time to explore his own magical abilities, just like in the game. He reflects on how his choices have already diverged from the game's storyline, igniting hope that he can carve out a new fate. Still, he can't shake the chilling realization that this world remains eerily similar to the game he once played. Rid grins, opting to test his fire magic first before experimenting with other elements. To his surprise, he successfully casts spells from every magical element. He concentrates, envisioning how to mold his magic into formidable attacks like a fire or lightning spear. With a determined shout, he releases a fire spear, a powerful projectile of dark energy that crashes into the ground. He surveys the damage with pride, declaring his first combat spell a clear success. His practice is abruptly interrupted by Melty, who claps in delight at his astonishing display. The startled Rid realizes his sister has been secretly observing his magic practice from the very start. He leans in to propose a deal, asking her to keep his powers a secret in exchange for reading her favorite stories. Melty pleads to witness the magic again, but he explains that drawing attention to his abilities could be perilous. A few days later, a letter from Christie in the capital arrives, and Rid anxiously wonders about the outcome of her mission. He reads Christie's letter, discovering that his father was misled and a rival earl was banned from court, a man he has never met. Just then, his tutor Sandra arrives, announcing it's time for his magic lesson on elemental aptitudes. Ridfane's naivety shines through as he asks if special magic also requires a unique aptitude to wield. Sandra clarifies that unlike elemental magic, special magic doesn't require an aptitude, meaning anyone could potentially learn it. The revelation excites Rid, who realizes this means he can craft his very own unique spells. His tutor explains that special magic demands a much stronger image and greater power than standard attack spells. He connects this to his own experience, recalling how a clear mental image was crucial for casting his first spell. Rid correctly concludes that without sufficient imagination or power, any attempt to create or teach special magic will fail. Sandra adds that only the creator can instruct their unique spell, a process that drains energy from both teacher and student. Shifting topics, she excitedly announces that the moonlight grass is effective, and now they must figure out how to transform it into a potion. Sandra confesses her obsession with the herb's appearance made her overlook its actual effects. Fueled by excitement, she thanks RID profusely and rushes off to whip up a prototype, completely disregarding his lesson. Later, Rid finds himself ensnared in a fierce thunderstorm, the sky illuminated by flashes of lightning. He contemplates how to gauge his magical strength, pondering if a specific tool exists for that. Unfazed by the rain, he grins and decides to make his way back to the mansion. Soaked to the skin upon arrival, he is instantly greeted by a swarm of frantic maids. They ignore his protests, insisting he take a warm bath to prevent a repeat of his previous collapse. His drenched clothes are tossed aside as the maids prepare a lavish bath for him. Rid sinks into the soothing water, a blissful smile spreading across his face as he relishes the rare comfort. He muses that while most people settle for damp cloths, having a full bathtub brought to him is a true luxury. He wonders about the precise amount of water used for his bath, a thought igniting a new idea. Rid realizes this world employs the same metric system as his previous one, a vital piece of knowledge. A brilliant thought strikes him, and he understands he can leverage this information to his benefit. He swiftly sets his plan in motion, obtaining a precisely measured container with Garn's assistance. In the garden, he readies himself to conduct an experiment aimed at quantifying his magical power. Using his water magic, he fills a 1-liter vessel perfectly, establishing a baseline for his experiment. By repeatedly filling the container, he invents his own unit of measurement for magical output, dubbing it a riddle. With practice, he sharpens his precision, opting to increase the repetitions to refine his control. He trains relentlessly, casting the spell hundreds of times to internalize the sensation of consuming a specific amount of magic. Rid concentrates intensely, mastering the skill to control and quantify his magical energy. He establishes his own unit of measurement, calculating his total magical power to exceed 980 riddles. Rid envisions a new type of magic, a measurement of magical power aimed at quantifying his own and others' abilities. He casts the spell for the first time, and a number representing his magical power appears vividly in his mind. He attempts to cast it again, but this time nothing occurs, leaving him briefly puzzled. A second attempt succeeds, and he realizes the spell requires 20 riddles, confirming his new ability functions flawlessly. Thoughts of his mother cross his mind, recognizing this new spell will be essential for tracking the recovery potion's effectiveness. Feeling a sense of achievement, he strolls back to the mansion under the moonlight, confident he's made another breakthrough. Later, he shares his new invention with Sandra, who is so shocked she asks him to repeat what he said. He calmly clarifies that he developed a unique spell specifically to measure the cost of casting magic. His tutor is left speechless, utterly bewildered by his unconventional approach and how he even managed to create such a spell. Rid methodically outlines his entire thought process, from measuring water to generating a numerical value for his magic. His tutor concedes she never would have imagined such a concept, while Rid smugly claims he just kinda did it. Sandra's demeanor shifts to serious, warning him to never mention this spell again or risk being taken to the capital. He questions her extreme response, arguing that his idea seems straightforward enough for any water mage to discover. She explains that most individuals can't even wield magic, and only a true genius like him would think to quantify it. RID learns that in this realm, magic is primarily reserved for combat and research, not for everyday use. He finds it utterly wasteful that in a world brimming with fantasy, magic is so seldom utilized. Sandra labels him an unconventional prodigy, admitting she never would have thought to devise such a precise spell. Recognizing his own potential, he wonders why Sandra, a master of magic conversion, isn't the one being sought by the capital. With a knowing grin, she reveals that's precisely why she was selected to lead a prestigious research institute. She smugly confesses that despite her brilliance, she was swiftly overwhelmed by the capital's political machinations. Rid realizes his unconventional talent has made him a subject of intense intrigue for his tutor. He agrees to keep his ability under wraps, only to feel intimidated when his tutor approaches, calling him amusingly easy to read. She then strikes a theatrical pose, urging him to break all conventions and become a talent too great to be contained. With their new alliance formed, Sandra presents RID with several prototypes of the Moonlight Grass Potion. He steels himself, knowing that the herb's terrible taste is a minor sacrifice for his mother's sake. With a look of utter revulsion, he bravely begins the experiment by tasting the first raw sample. After sampling every single prototype, he carefully evaluates the outcomes of their initial tests. He concludes that consuming the herb raw restores some magic, but its overpowering bitterness makes it utterly inedible. Boiling the herb proves even worse, resulting in an undrinkable mixture with the least effective results. He concludes that turning the herb into powder is the most effective approach, despite its awful flavor. With a mischievous grin, his tutor suggests that the way he ingests the final sample could alter its effects. Sandra commends his perseverance, deciding that the powdered version will be appropriate for his mother. This breakthrough makes him realize their objective is finally within grasp. He tightens his fist in victory, having successfully concocted a functional magic recovery potion. Nervously, he glances at his tutor, who wears a self-satisfied expression, clearly relishing the moment. He can't shake the memory of the twisted pleasure his tutor took in his struggles. He promises himself to never forget this debt, or the embarrassment that accompanied it. A sense of dread washes over him, as Sandra cryptically hints at asking his sister for insight into what lies ahead. At that moment, he notices his sister Melty strolling down the hallway, blissfully unaware of his anxiety. Rid greets his sister Melty with enthusiasm as she rushes to embrace him. Melty sneezes loudly, sending a strong gust of air toward her surprised brother. As a maid scolds Melty, Rid grimaces, realizing everyone is now keeping their distance. His butler Garn informs him that the odor from the potion experiment is overwhelming, and he needs to clean up immediately. Rid lets out a frustrated yell from the mansion, finally giving in to his tutor's cruel scheme. Meanwhile, Rubens leads the knights through a series of coordinated warm-up routines. Rid discovers that his radio calisthenics have officially become part of the knights' training program. Rubens calls out Rid for his poor form, pointing out that the young lord's exercises differ from his teachings. Reflecting on his training, Rid realizes he grasped the significance of warm-ups, but never anticipated their widespread adoption. Rubens lands a precise strike, reminding the distracted Rid that a moment's inattention could be deadly in real combat. Rid's ears perk up at the mention of dungeons, and he eagerly inquires with his knight escort for more information. Rubens explains that dungeons are viewed as living entities, a concept Rid recalls from his previous life's games. He learns that dungeons form around a magical core, which generates monsters and treasures to attract unsuspecting prey. To avert a monster outbreak, knights and adventurers must venture deep to destroy the core, but a damaged core can simply retreat and heal. Rid envisions the dungeon layout, likening it to an ant colony with a formidable boss monster at its center. He excitedly inquires about adventurer guilds, and Rubens confirms that the Empire has both state-run and private ones. The knight explains that guilds provide quests to freelancers, with the Baldia Territories Guild focusing on gathering tasks. Rid daydreams about joining a guild while Rubens commends his swift progress, confident he'll conquer dungeons effortlessly. With a sly smile, Rid jokes that by then, Rubens better have finally proposed to Diana, leaving the knight flustered. His teasing is interrupted as Diana appears, revealing she's still waiting for that proposal, leaving Rid completely shocked. A flustered Rubens denies any romantic intentions, but Rid confidently asserts that Diana's feelings are clear. Rid learns that while her parents push for marriage, Diana consistently regards Rubens as merely a friend, infuriating the knight. The knight reveals that Diana even prepares him practice lunches, claiming he's her future husband, not Rubens. Rid is left utterly perplexed by Diana's frustratingly oblivious behavior. He recalls their childhood promise and instructs the knight to take Diana to their special place and finally confess. Rid challenges the bewildered knight to decipher the true meaning behind Diana's puzzling actions. The knight's expression softens as he starts to genuinely contemplate Diana's true feelings. Noticing a glimmer of understanding, Rid encourages the knight, who reluctantly agrees to the plan. The knight's inner thoughts reveal he can't simply allow things to remain unchanged. Later, Rid sits with his sister, a smug grin on his face as he decides to keep his matchmaking plans under wraps for now. Rubens takes Diana to their childhood spot, where she nostalgically reminisces about the times they played there. Overwhelmed with emotion, the blushing knight finally stutters out his long-held feelings for her. Rid later discovers that his meddling was successful, as the two knights have officially begun their relationship. The young matchmaker watches from his window, smugly thinking they should just tie the knot already. The next morning, Rid is deep in slumber, with cheerful birds chirping outside his window. His peaceful sleep is abruptly interrupted as his sister Melty leaps onto his bed with a full-body tackle. He notes that while Melty has become his personal wake-up call, her method is a bit too intense. Sometimes he wakes up first, much to the dismay of a pouting Melty, who missed her chance to pounce. After their morning routine, Melty embarks on her rigorous schedule of lessons, from etiquette to dance. Rid realizes these morning ambushes are her only opportunity to spend time with him before her studies commence. Rid's peaceful morning is shattered by the grand arrival of his father, Reiner, back from the capital. As the kids welcome them, a weary Christie glances at Rid, silently conveying her effort in completing her task. Rid rushes to Christie, alarmed as she nearly collapses from exhaustion, with her maid Emma supporting her. Reiner acknowledges the trip's toll and sends the weary Christie to rest, calling Rid to his office for a private chat. In the office, Reiner's piercing, unreadable stare meets Rid's, leaving the boy utterly confused. Facing his son, Reiner gets straight to the point, demanding to understand Rid's drastic transformation. Taken aback by the blunt inquiry, Rid weighs his options before deciding he can no longer hide the truth. His father presses on, noting that Rid's advanced knowledge and mature demeanor can't be explained away. Rid remembers the moment he fainted, when memories of his previous life surged back, and he chooses his words carefully. He reveals that his past life memories merged with the original Rid, forming a completely new identity. He shares that the original Rid was burdened with guilt for his outbursts towards family, yearning to match his father's strength. The original Rid's sorrow over his mother's illness now fuels his fierce determination to protect his family. A heavy silence envelops the room as father and son sit across from one another, absorbing the shocking truth. Rid flinches under his father's inscrutable gaze, bracing himself for the reaction to his astonishing tale. Reiner breaks the stillness by simply uttering his son's name, his expression remaining serious. In a surprising gesture, his father bows deeply, apologizing for not recognizing his son's pain. The flustered boy urges his father to lift his head, while Reiner chastises himself for missing the signs of his son's distress. Overwhelmed with emotion, Rid realizes his father genuinely believes him, as Reiner mourns his shortcomings as a parent. His father accepts the unbelievable story, then inquires about the medicine Rid secretly created using his past knowledge. Rid proudly announces that the medicine is a magical recovery potion, a revelation that shakes his father's composure. He calmly details the entire process, from gathering the herb to concocting the potion with Sandra's assistance. He clarifies that the potion is merely a temporary fix, and they still need to discover a lasting cure for Nanoli. Recognizing the seriousness of the situation, Reiner pledges his full support, ready to assist in any way possible. Before Rid can reply, Reiner calls for Garn, stating there's another significant issue to address. With a serious demeanor, his father drops a bombshell, bluntly revealing that Rid's marriage has been arranged. The startled boy stutters, asking when this will take place, only to find out the wedding could be in just a few months. Reiner admits the news is sudden for him too, having just been informed by the Emperor. He explains this is a political marriage to a princess of the same age, aimed at strengthening their alliance. Garn wisely proposes constructing a separate mansion for the princess to accommodate their cultural differences. Reiner agrees and assigns Rid the task of planning, leaving the boy to ponder why a foreign princess would marry a mere Margrave's son. Reiner begins to clarify the intricate political landscape, revealing the princess hails from the dark, elf-ruled Reinhardt Kingdom. A map shows that the human-led Balst Kingdom and the dark elf Renat Kingdom are neighboring territories with a history of conflict. Previously, the Balst Kingdom's ruthless slave hunting brought relations with Renart to the brink of war. Facing crippling sanctions, Renard sought assistance from the Magnoria Empire, which offered help in exchange for vassalage. Renati accepted, becoming a vassal state while maintaining its autonomy, needing Magnoria's approval for major decisions. Magnoria then prohibited the slave trade, freeing all captured dark elves and resolving the immediate crisis. Rid realizes that marrying the princess to a high-ranking imperial noble would ignite perilous political disputes over succession. Thus, Rid, a Margrave's son of similar age and distant from the capital's power struggles, was seen as the ideal choice. Reiner sips his tea, reminding Rid that as an imperial noble, such a political marriage is a responsibility he cannot evade. Rid mourns the princess's fate, understanding she's being wed to a border family solely due to her nation's vassal status. Reiner tells Rid that if he feels pity for the princess, he must be the one to cherish her above all others. He asserts that the destiny of this princess, tossed around by fate, now lies in Rid's hands. With a confident grin, Reiner entrusts the princess's safety to Rid, who accepts this new responsibility. Rid ponders his future bride, a dark elf princess named Farah Renate. His father confirms her identity as the first princess of the Renart Kingdom. Rid immediately requests to oversee the design of her new mansion and to visit her kingdom beforehand. He cryptically states that his request relates to his past life and could even provide a clue to curing his mother. His father consents to the brief trip, explaining that while the marriage isn't public yet, Rid will be presented as a candidate. As he walks away, Rid can't help but be amazed that he's getting engaged at the tender age of 6. Garn offers his unwavering support, confident that Rid can bring happiness to the princess with their assistance. Rid expresses gratitude to Garn for the support, vowing to give his all for his future wife. He privately reflects on the ridiculousness of marrying when he still feels like a child. As Garn leaves with a knowing grin, Rid brushes off his worries with a light chuckle. Deciding to check on Christie, he quietly approaches her door and knocks before peeking in. Silence piques his curiosity. He tiptoes cautiously into the room to find her. He finds the elven merchant sound asleep, utterly drained from her journey. Rid is briefly taken aback by her serene and vulnerable state. He sits beside her bed, admiring her beauty, noting her exhaustion just as she starts to murmur. In her sleep, Christie shifts, mumbling about "Your Highness," clearly dreaming of the royal audience. Her sleep talk leaves Rid flustered, pondering what kind of dream she's experiencing. Feeling embarrassed by her murmurs, Rid decides he's heard enough and attempts a quiet getaway. He discovers the door is mysteriously stuck, realizing with a shock that someone is outside. The door creaks open slowly, confirming that his escape has been intentionally obstructed. His sister Melty peeks through the opening, having caught him in a rather compromising situation. She reprimands him for being alone in a lady's room, while Rid nervously pleads for her to let him go. Rid apologizes repeatedly, eager to escape before Christie wakes and finds him. Later, Anoa wakes Christie, apologizing for her fatigue, completely unaware of Rid's earlier dilemma. He asks her to share details about her mission, and she begins to recount her experiences in the capital. Christie describes her encounter with Earl Roland and the secret tea party, where she negotiated with the Empress. She reveals that the Emperor later commanded Earl Roland to pay a substantial compensation for insulting a foreign noble's daughter. Christie discloses that she turned down the compensation, a choice that only intensified Earl Roland's public disgrace. The Emperor then granted her the opportunity to speak, and Christie seized the moment to address the entire court. With a fierce, determined look, she readied herself to deliver her final calculated strike. She publicly condemned the nobles for believing unfounded rumors, warning that their actions could tarnish the empire's reputation. Her words struck home, leaving the enraged Earl Roland with no option but to accept his defeat. Christie then offered a gracious apology on behalf of the court, leaving Reiner and Emma in awe. Ridd admits she might have overstepped, but Christie insists she needed to teach the nobility a lesson. Now, Earl Roland's faction has lost all credibility and won't dare to act against them for a while. Christie explains that the Earl aimed to monopolize their business, making him an adversary she had to defeat eventually. Ridd smiles, genuinely thankful that Christie has joined their cause and that her mission was a great success. Suddenly, Christie is hit by a powerful memory from her past. She remembers the painful times when her hard work went completely unrecognized. Turning to Ridd, she shares that meeting him has been the greatest honor and an incredible stroke of luck. The story flashes back to when Earl Roland's taunts ignited her determination to establish her own company. Born into the saffron merchant family, Christie's older brother was always seen as the chosen heir. She had once intended to support her brother from the shadows, but others recognized her true potential. Whispers began circulating that Christie, with her exceptional talent, was the one who truly deserved to lead. To prevent a family conflict, she opted to leave and carve her own path in the Baldia territory. However, starting a new business from scratch proved to be an arduous struggle, pushing her to the edge of despair. It was during her darkest moments that a young boy with a brilliant idea appeared, altering her destiny forever. He reflects on her past, recognizing that talent alone can't surmount every challenge, yet he believes that true fortune only favors those who fight fiercely for acknowledgement. He tells Christie that her achievements are her own, a product of her relentless efforts in the Baldia territory. Ridd encourages her to have more faith in herself, reminding her of all she has accomplished independently. His sincere compliments leave the usually composed merchant utterly flustered. Christie is overwhelmed by his praise, struggling to believe he holds her in such high regard. Tears flow down her cheeks as gratitude washes over her, realizing she's finally received the validation she longed for. Once she regains her composure, Ridd smoothly shifts back to business, mentioning the deal with the Empress. Regaining her professional demeanor, Christie outlines the contract terms, prioritizing the Empress's supply and requiring upfront payment for all future orders. When Ridd questions their capacity to fulfill the first order, she confidently states she's already secured the raw materials through Reiner. Christie eagerly shares her strategy to dominate the raw materials market, utilizing every asset she can find. She points out that securing the Empress is vital, as her endorsement will serve as the best advertisement. Ridd praises her, claiming her allure will draw customers in, leaving the flustered merchant momentarily speechless. He insists that her using the products is the best testament to their quality, a fact she cannot dispute. Then he discloses an important secret. The rinse can be created with ordinary olive oil, not just rare items. Christie feels honored to discover that RID has named the new product line after her and her devoted maid, Emma. RID shares his vision for a complete product line featuring various scents and effects, igniting Christie's entrepreneurial spirit. He wraps up the meeting, stating that all future correspondence with the Empress will be routed through him. Ridd contemplates the formidable Empress Matilda, realizing the potential danger of having her as a political ally. He cheerfully concludes that anyone who can impress the Empress so thoroughly must be an exceptional negotiator. An awkward silence lingers between Ridd and Christie following their intense discussion. Christie is taken aback when Ridd casually mentions he knows what she murmured in her sleep. Furious, she accuses him of being the worst for watching a woman while she sleeps. His frantic apologies are cut short by Melty and a maid arriving with more tea. He desperately pleads with his sister not to reveal that he saw Christie's sleeping face. Melty turns away, unimpressed by his excuses, leaving him in complete despair. The scene transitions to a rainy day, a single drop splashing into a puddle, reflecting a sense of unease. Back in her room, Nanalie is haunted by the sensation of her life force slowly fading. With tears welling up, she grits her teeth, vowing not to succumb to her illness. She declares with renewed determination that she will rise again, no matter the obstacles. Nanalie steels herself, reminding herself to act maturely and confront what lies ahead. A knock interrupts her thoughts, and a voice invites the guest to come in. Reiner walks in with Rid and his tutor Sandra, who politely announces their presence. Sandra greets Nanalie with a warm smile, and the two women share a meaningful glance for the first time. Nanalie formally introduces herself, apologizing for receiving them while confined to bed. Sandra introduces herself as a magic researcher, leaving Rid in awe of his mother's elegant beauty. Reiner finally comes clean, admitting he has concealed the name of her illness from her. He reveals that her condition is magic-powered depletion syndrome, a terminal and untreatable ailment. Reiner is taken aback when Nanalie calmly responds that she was already aware of her diagnosis. A flashback shows her overhearing the devastating news from a conversation she wasn't supposed to hear. Nanalie reassures her husband, explaining that she had already suspected her illness was terminal. Rid is shocked she knows the exact term, while Nanalie apologizes for the pain she has caused him. An enraged Reiner confronts his wife, furious that she faced her suffering alone. He collapses in guilt, but Nanalie comforts him, reminiscing about their happier times together. Rid screams that his mother's magic is nearly depleted, prompting Sandra to administer the potion as Nanalie writhes. Sandra desperately attempts to give her the medicine, while a terrified Rid begs his mother to hold on. As Nanalie fights against it, Rid completely breaks down, pleading for her not to die. Suddenly, the boy is shoved aside as his father takes decisive action. Reiner holds his wife tightly, using his own mouth to transfer the life-saving potion to her. Cradling the now unconscious Natalie, Reiner recalls the day they first met while he was working in the capital. The story flashes back to a disguised man named Arwen who explains his trip to town is for reconnaissance and a gift for his wife. He reveals that his father's health is declining, meaning he must soon take over and will lose the freedom to walk among his people. Arwen vows to protect this town, urging his attendant to memorize the location before he assumes his new duties. As his attendant tries to intervene, Arwen calmly tells him not to overexert himself, while a nearby knight is assigned to protect him. He approaches a young Nanalie who is being cornered in an alley by a nobleman and his thugs. The nobleman offers to overlook her disgrace if she accompanies them, leaving the terrified Nanalie to silently plead for rescue. Arwen intervenes, only for the nobleman to cover Nanalie's mouth and falsely claim she's his lover in a secret rendezvous. Nanalie breaks free, pleading for help and insisting she has no ties to the men, a plea Arwen calmly acknowledges. After a swift confrontation, the defeated nobleman from the rogue family flees, shouting threats of revenge. Arwen checks on the weeping Natalie, who thanks him for his assistance as his attendant offers a comforting gesture. Arwen's servant inadvertently discloses his master's real name, Reiner, which Nanalie overhears with admiration. Months pass, and Reiner finds himself irritated by an unexpected marriage proposal from both his parents and the Empress. He discovers that his prospective bride is the renowned Crimson Lady, Nanalie Ronimus, famed for turning down every suitor. In their initial encounter, Nanalie points out that she understands Crimson Lady is his compliment for her lovely hair, catching Reiner off guard. She admits that after spurning a previous suitor, a nasty rumor circulated, branding her as a cold-hearted woman. Nanalie beams with joy, realizing Reiner's nickname for her carries such a kind and beautiful meaning. Touched by his honesty, Reiner proposes, and Nanalie happily agrees, eager to become the lady of the Baldia territory. Back in the present, Rid frantically employs his new spell to gauge his mother's magic as she drinks the potion. The result flashes in his mind, indicating her magic power has surged to 1 out of 1, a sign the potion is effective. As Rid and Sandra celebrate their victory, a week later, she slowly opens her eyes and murmurs her son's name. Overcome with relief, Rid breaks down in tears as his mother gently reassures him that she is okay. Later, Rid marvels at the potion's effectiveness, while Sandra attributes Nanalie's rescue to his father's quick thinking. He recalls how his father took decisive action, administering the potion himself when Nanalie refused, just before Sandra requests a private chat. Noticing his parents sharing a quiet moment, Rid decides to grant them some much-needed privacy. Meanwhile, in the Renart Kingdom, the Dark Elf King questions the Emperor's true intentions behind arranging his daughter's marriage. His advisor proposes they use the upcoming visit to evaluate the candidate, though he seems to harbor his own doubts. Now in Renart, Rid cheekily suggests they assess whether the Margrave's son is worthy of their princess, hinting at a specific interest. In the past, Rid angrily confronts his father about his earlier self-pity, calling him out for claiming to be a failure. Rid and Sandra watch in stunned silence as Reiner suddenly envelops his wife in a tight, emotional embrace. After their moment, Nanalie pulls back slightly, ready to address the important matters they need to discuss. Rid urgently casts his magic power measurement spell, fearing the worst for his mother's fading life force. Reiner gets lost in a memory of his wife's radiant beauty, recalling the first time he was enchanted by her. Nanalie playfully teases Rid and Sandra about their closeness, noting how mature her son has become, much to his embarrassment. Rid quickly shifts the topic, telling a stunned Sandra he needs her assistance to create another unique magic. He unveils his next ambitious endeavor, a spell he dubs Recall Magic. He elaborates on the theory from his past life. Memories are never truly lost, merely dormant within the mind. He reasons that since he possesses memories from a past life, they must reside in the soul, not just the brain. This leads him to a groundbreaking inquiry. Can a method be devised to access the memories of the soul? Sandra introduces him to a related concept, a magical philosophy known as Seima Shindo. Rid discovers that Seima Shindo is an obscure philosophy in this world, known to very few. Sandra explains that Seima Shindo connects life force, magic, and the nervous system, which Rid relates to his own theory. He realizes his magic conversion closely resembles this philosophy and decides to test it, despite his mother's worries. He meditates, converting life force into magic, then attempts to push it deep within himself. Not seeing immediate results, he persists, wondering if the converted energy returns to a specific location, like the soul. Suddenly, he feels his magic being drawn into a bright, unknown void, realizing he may have erred. He's thrust into a bizarre, disorienting space filled with endless floating bookshelves. As he tries to orient himself in the vast library, a mysterious figure greets him from behind. Rid is shocked to find himself face to face with an identical version of himself. The doppelganger introduces himself as Memory, the embodiment of Rid's memories, and requests his cooperation. Rid explains his desire to explore his memories, and Memory confirms it's feasible if he acts as the intermediary. Memory clarifies that while this realm is usually off-limits, he can now be summoned to assist Rid in searching for information. The doppelganger inquires how Rid intends to summon him, noting it will naturally require some magic. He cautions that this soul realm is delicate, and Rid can't simply visit at will. Memory instructs him to simply call his name when needed, leaving Rid to stammer out his gratitude. With a final wave, Memory and the Library of the Soul begin to dissolve into radiant light. Back in reality, Rid's eyes snap open, startling a concerned Sandra who had been watching over him. The abrupt return to consciousness sends Sandra tumbling backward as a disoriented Rid tries to figure out his surroundings. Sandra glares at him, explaining she was startled when he suddenly shouted after being completely still. He apologizes for causing them worry, as his mother notes from her bed that he was out for quite a while. Rid ponders his hands, recalling his doppelganger's final cryptic warning about a perilous place. Rid expresses regret to Sandra about the unsuccessful experiment, confessing he feared he might not return. In his room, he quietly experiments with his newfound ability, softly uttering the name of his doppelganger, Memory. A voice suddenly resonates in his mind, affirming that the link to his soul's library is genuine. Memory playfully mocks him, delighted that their minds are genuinely connected, which slightly irritates Rid. The doppelganger inquires about his search intentions, but Rid clarifies he was merely testing the link. Promising to return when summoned, the presence of Memory gradually dissipates from Rid's consciousness. Later, Rid checks on his mother, who appears much better due to Sandra's careful potion administration. He smirks, noticing his usually quirky tutor is putting on a perfectly composed act for his mother. With renewed determination, he pledges to develop a permanent cure to save his mother and others suffering from her illness. His intense concentration shatters when Sandra teasingly accuses him of having inappropriate thoughts, which he vehemently denies. Since his mother's collapse, Sandra has taken on the role of her primary caregiver, even mastering Rid's magic measurement spell. Noticing Rid's serious demeanor, Sandra asks what's troubling him as he gazes into the distance. His mother gently cautions him against overthinking, but his mind is already set on his next course of action. Emma interrupts their quiet moment, reminding Rid that his father has summoned him for an important conversation. Reiner greets him with a serious expression, announcing that their itinerary for the trip to the Renard Kingdom is finalized. The reality strikes Rid, jolting him as he realizes his journey is about to commence. Rid's trip has another purpose. The moonlight grass for the potion can't be grown locally, leading to a supply crisis. He remembers Renard's advanced farming techniques, hoping to establish a trade route and uncover clues for his mother's permanent cure. His father warns that while the Renate king is cooperative, certain noble factions strongly oppose the marriage. Reiner reveals the grim possibility that these factions might attempt to eliminate Rid from the competition entirely. Rid realizes that being a candidate means he'll be pulled into the Imperial Court's power struggles, a precarious position. He questions how his father knows so much, and Reiner explains that a nation is never united, and he must gather intelligence to safeguard their lands. A sudden realization strikes Rid as he contemplates his father's words. He asks if they have a spy in Renard, and Reiner cryptically assures him that he will teach him the art of espionage later. Meanwhile, a Renate noble named Norris argues that marrying a Margrave's son from the border is a brilliant political strategy for them. The Renard king seems to concur with Norris's viewpoint, yet his expression reveals deep reservations. The noble Norris Tamuska respectfully offers his advice, framing it as a simple suggestion following the marriage proposal. The king reluctantly acknowledges that Norris's arguments hold merit, though his demeanor remains troubled. Alone, the king fears that Norris is using the marriage to infiltrate the empire and incite a rebellion, leading to further conflict. The king's son bursts in, angrily demanding to know why his father is sending his sister Farah away as a political hostage. Prince Rains enters the throne room, formally addressing his father with a serious expression. He clenches his fist, arguing that his 6-year-old sister Farah shouldn't be married off to just anyone, especially outside the kingdom. The king explains that this is a crucial political alliance, urging his son to grasp the harsh realities of leadership. The prince erupts in fury, adamantly refusing to accept his father's political justification. The king observes with a stern gaze, believing his son is still too immature and emotional for a prince. Ordered to calm down in his room, the prince reluctantly apologizes for his outburst and turns to leave. As he walks down a corridor to cool off, he spots his sister Farah approaching with her attendant. The princess calls out to her brother, surprised to see him, explaining she was on her way to visit their mother. Farah greets her brother with a bright, innocent smile, completely oblivious to the political chaos around her. She asks why he's upset, surprised to learn their father was angry, as Rains explains he was told to calm down. The prince reflects on his sister's beauty and grace, noting she has inherited their mother's elegance. He proudly asserts that Farah is a sister to be treasured, his resolve strengthening as he gazes at her smile. After her attendant reminds her of the time, Farah politely bows and takes her leave. The prince watches her depart, vowing that his sister will never face disrespect. He clenches his fist, determined to shield Farah from her political destiny, unaware of his future rival. Back in his own time, Rid is suddenly struck by a vision of the prince's vow, leaving him bewildered. He realizes that communicating with memory drains his magic like a phone call, and asks his doppelganger why he appears so angry. Memory clarifies that Rid's new spell summons him to search his soul's archives for specific details. The doppelganger reprimands Rid for attempting to access too much at once, accusing him of skipping the dull parts of his own memories. Rid remembers that in his previous life, he used the game's skip function on the main story, leaving his understanding of the core plot dangerously incomplete. Rid remembers that in his previous life's game, Renard had a prince named Rains, who turned out to be quite handy. He opts to inquire about how the memory retrieval process actually functions. Memory explains that only information learned consciously is readily available, while passive memories are nearly impossible to retrieve. The doppelganger likens the challenge to searching for a single torn piece of paper in a massive landfill, yet Rid agrees to give it a shot. The focus shifts to his training, where Rubens insists Rid concentrate more on his movements. RID collapses, completely winded from the rigorous physical demands. His knight instructor declares it's time to commence the next training phase, magic-based body enhancement. Rubens elaborates that genuine enhancement involves channeling magic throughout the body, a skill that requires instinctual practice. The two prerequisites for this ability are revealed: mastering magic conversion and attaining a specific level of combat skill. Rubens encourages him to sense the magic flow instead of overanalyzing it, leaving Rid completely astonished. Rid hits the ground, utterly defeated, realizing how vastly different his stamina is compared to his seemingly tireless knight. A sly smile spreads across Ruben's face as he accurately deduces that Rid has been utilizing body enhancement all along. Energized by a new challenge, Rid vows to master body enhancement and finally triumph over his instructor in a daring training match. He quickly comprehends the concept, realizing his magic training with Sandra has made him a natural at this skill. The knight reflects that with such talent, Rid will have no peers his age in a decade, much to the boy's smug delight. The training escalates as Rid is instructed to sustain his body enhancement while sprinting at full speed. A montage illustrates his relentless training routine, from basic conditioning to sparring, even envisioning himself as his own cheerleader. Their sparring intensifies with a determined Rid pledging to land a hit while Rubens effortlessly deflects his strikes. He realizes that since mastering the new technique, his training has become significantly less exhausting and far more enjoyable. However, he acknowledges that the considerable gap in experience, reach, and physique means he still has a long way to go. A fierce urge to win surges through Rid as he lunges forward with all his strength. He attempts to leverage his smaller stature, hoping to deliver a single, decisive strike. But Ruben effortlessly catches him, commending his bravery while labeling his move as a poor choice. The knight concludes the session, noting that Rid's determination is commendable, even if his technique needs work. Ruben smirks, revealing that as a special instructor, he's merely been playing with Rid so far. Rid is taken aback, realizing the grueling session was just a light warm-up for his mentor. Their training is interrupted by the sudden appearance of his father, Reiner, who was held up by paperwork. Reiner asks if the teasing has concluded, much to Rid's utter astonishment. His father then challenges him to a duel, eager to test Rid's full strength, including his new body enhancement. With a determined grin, Rid accepts the challenge, ready to face his father in his first real match. Rid lunges forward with his training sword, channeling all his enhanced strength into a single determined strike. His father is genuinely impressed, noting that such skill and body enhancement are alarmingly advanced for a boy his age. However, Reiner effortlessly deflects the blow, asking if that's all he's got, prompting Rid to insist the fight isn't over. With a confident smirk, Reiner declares he's going on the offensive, forcing a winded Rid to brace for the onslaught. The boy struggles to keep pace as his father moves with blinding speed, the sheer pressure of the duel weighing heavily. Rid collapses in fatigue, realizing this bout was far more exhausting than his sessions with Rubens, as his father announces he's passed the test. Reiner then states that the next test will be one of courage, a trial of Rid's mental strength to remain unshaken. He explains that Rid must now comprehend his own limits, as one day he'll face real battles where courage is key to survival. Reiner draws a real saber, remarking that Rid is worth training, a statement that leaves the boy utterly horrified. Rid receives one final command to stand firm and not flinch, a directive he accepts with steely resolve. With a sharp glint in his eye, Reiner announces the test is commencing, leaving Rid to stare in dread at the real blade. Rid is overwhelmed by an intense pressure, a terrifying aura he recognizes as his father's true unleashed power. His father closes the gap in an instant, ready to show his son the frightening reality of an actual battle. Paralyzed by a wave of pure killing intent, Rid can only watch as the blade's tip halts just inches from his face. The sheer terror becomes unbearable, and Rid finally breaks, flinching away and crying out in fear. The intense pressure dissipates, leaving Rid collapsed on the forest floor as his father calmly lowers his sword. Reiner coldly questions his son's bravery, asking why he flinched when he was explicitly told to observe his every move. Rid concedes his defeat, explaining that the combination of the real blade and his father's killing intent was too terrifying to withstand. His father clarifies the lesson. Fear is a crucial survival tool, but allowing it to control you is a death sentence in real combat. Reiner offers a challenging smile, asking if Rid can keep pace, to which the boy responds with fierce determination. Rubens delivers some last words of encouragement, framing this harsh training as a trial only Rid can withstand. Reiner kicks off the next round, instructing his son to mimic his every action without hesitation. His father unleashes another rapid swing, pushing the boy's determination to the limit once more. Rid quakes with fear, but steels himself, understanding that this daunting challenge is vital for his survival. His father barks another command to keep his gaze steady, as Rid fights back tears to maintain focus on the blade. The boy concentrates hard, his eyes following the lethal path of his father's sword. Reiner halts, smirking as he observes that his son is finally beginning to handle the pressure. A breathless Rid can't believe there's more to come, just as Rubens announces the next phase. Reiner draws a line in the dirt, daring Rid to pass him and his saber to reach Rubens. With fierce determination, Rid accepts the challenge, prepared to confront his father's ultimate test. Rid evades his father's initial block and makes a dash, initiating the daunting trial. He's left gasping by his father's astonishing speed, a blur of movement he can barely grasp. But as he adjusts to the tempo, he starts to believe he might actually have a shot at winning. With fiery determination, he resolves to demonstrate the full extent of his training to his father. He plants his foot firmly, summoning all his strength for one final decisive charge. Drawing on his connection with his mentor, he envisions them cheering each other on toward victory. The boy launches himself forward in a desperate leap, aiming to cross the line and reach Rubens. His instructor catches him, bursting with pride and tears as he praises the boy for his achievement. His father announces the training session is over, adding with a sly grin that he'll be joining in from now on. Rid is left speechless when his father declares this grueling trial will now become a regular occurrence. Rid tearfully expresses his gratitude to his father, who suspects the boy's thanks might be a bit misplaced. Their intense training session is interrupted by a small voice calling out to Rid from across the field. His younger sister Melty rushes in with her maid, having witnessed the entire ordeal. With puffed cheeks and an angry glare, she prepares to defend her brother's honor. Melty confronts her father, accusing him of bullying Rid while delivering a series of tiny indignant punches. The maid explains that Melty insisted on watching, prompting the little girl to tearfully declare her hatred for her father's meanness. Taking her brother's hand, Melty declares that his training is officially over and she's taking him away. Rid gently reassures her that their father was only being strict for his own benefit, comforting his protective little sister. Later, a downcast Reiner laments that his daughter now despises him, only to be startled by his office door swinging open. A shy Melty stands in the doorway, timidly apologizing for her earlier harsh remarks. Reiner gently comforts his daughter, who is overwhelmed with tears of gratitude for his understanding. Melty clings to her brother, making him promise to be her protector and return home safely. Rid whispers a final goodbye to his sister, while their father observes the touching moment from a distance. Melty then rushes to her father, tugging on his leg to grab his attention one last time. Reiner scoops her into his arms, promising to return as soon as possible, much to Rid's mild annoyance. With a radiant smile, Melty seals the promise with her father, her worries finally eased. Sandra confidently assures Rid that she will look after his mother using the magic he taught her. With his family bidding him farewell, Rid embarks on his journey to the Renat Kingdom, filled with renewed determination. Meanwhile, deep within the demon forest bordering Renart, two enigmatic creatures are about to cross paths. In the pouring rain, a small, unknown being peeks out from the safety of a hollow tree. The tiny creature is immediately confronted by a gigantic winged snake that emits a terrifying roar. Terrified, the slime realizes it's trapped by a green snake and desperately wishes to escape. The monstrous snake lunges forward, its jaws wide open and ready to strike the defenseless slime. But just before it can deliver the final blow, a fierce black beast intervenes with a powerful counter. The mysterious creature swiftly dominates the snake, leaving the little slime in stunned silence. Standing triumphantly over its vanquished foe, the black beast licks its chops, its power undeniable. The slime is utterly captivated, filled with admiration for its cool and formidable savior. The beast watches the slime bounce away joyfully, having saved it from certain peril. It wonders why a solitary slime, the weakest creature in the demon forest's food chain, would be in such a perilous situation. Unlike typical slimes that split apart, this one gathered magic until it developed a unique and powerful emotion. The creature glares fiercely at the quaking slime, clearly irritated by its unwavering admiration. The slime reflects on its solitary life, opting for isolation to survive until the green snake discovered it. The beast turns around, exuding pure frustration, clearly done with its new shadow. Irritated, the beast questions why the slime is trailing it, but the little one just keeps following. The beast's patience finally breaks as it realizes the slime has no plans to leave. Its size dawns on it, understanding that if it abandons the slime, it will be left hungry. Thus, their peculiar partnership begins, with the beast reluctantly taking on the role of the slime's guardian. Returning from a hunt, the beast brings back a sizable fish, announcing its presence to its new friend. To its shock, the beast finds its messy den completely tidied up, with all the old bones vanished. The beast stares in disbelief as the slime joyfully bounces, showcasing all the leftover scraps and bones. Flustered, the beast tosses its catch to the slime, pretending it's not a reward for the cleaning. It proposes a deal, allowing the slime to stay in exchange for ongoing housekeeping. A new routine forms, with the beast hunting while the slime tidies up, creating a silent agreement. One day, the slime attempts to rouse its sleeping companion, insisting it's time for a hunt. The sleepy beast grumbles that it only hunts when hunger strikes, clearly not a morning creature. Suddenly, it jolts awake, startled to realize it can hear the slime's voice in its mind. The slime explains that its strong desire to communicate must have triggered this new telepathic link. When the slime wishes for a cool appearance like the beast, the creature teasingly suggests making it its bride. The earnest slime takes the jest seriously, vowing to pray daily for its wish to be fulfilled. Soon, whispers spread of a shadow cougar and a slime forming an unbreakable, almost romantic bond. The shadow cougar reflects that the entrance to the demon forest is surprisingly safe, ideal for a weak slime. A strange fragmented thought resonates in its mind, warning against being sold away. Beneath the enchanting night sky, the slime's determination finally reaches its zenith. Excitedly, the slime urges its companion to watch, preparing to unveil a breathtaking transformation. It bursts forth in a dazzling light, its form morphing from a simple slime into a graceful white-furred beast. The newly formed creature opens its sharp, intelligent eyes, locking gazes with the astonished shadow cougar. The white beast inquires about its new appearance, leaving the black beast utterly speechless. The flustered shadow cougar concedes that the new form is adorable, prompting the white beast to remind it of their earlier promise. The scene transitions to a stunning humanoid figure emerging from a flower-filled field, identified solely as slime. The shadow cougar angrily affirms it remembers, stating it fell for the slime's heart, not its appearance, and wishes to repay its loyalty. The shadow cougar asks the white beast to be its partner and remain by its side forever. The beast asserts that the slime's form is irrelevant, its feelings will always remain unchanged. Overwhelmed with emotion, the white beast bursts into tears of unadulterated joy. The former slime affectionately nuzzles its new partner, expressing its profound love. Thus, the shadow cougar and the slime embarked on their peculiar, intertwined journey in the demon forest. The narrative hints that their paths will eventually intersect with a mysterious child before returning to a sleeping Rid. Back in the present, Rid's journey to Renart, alongside Christie and his knights, progresses smoothly. Upon reaching a stopover town, Rid is hit with a wave of motion sickness from the lengthy carriage ride. He collapses onto a bed, telling his attendant he needs to recuperate. Reclining in bed, Rid decides it's time to summon his other self, whispering the name, Memory. Rid requests Memory to seek information on Prince Rhines, recalling that the game featured character portraits of him. His doppelganger presents a mental image of the stern, dark elf prince, leaving Rid thoroughly impressed. Rid commits the prince's features to Memory, speculating that he might be a challenging sundry type. A knock at the door interrupts his focus, revealing a concerned Christie checking in on him. She offers him some special candies she crafted from herbs, explaining they alleviate motion sickness. Amazed by her kindness, Rid briefly envisions her as a radiant goddess for her thoughtful gesture. He gratefully accepts the candy, his spirits lifted and determination renewed for the journey ahead. Later, Rid gazes out the carriage window, announcing they've finally arrived at the Renard Kingdom's checkpoint. He recalls how the game featured thrilling side stories, realizing he's about to step into one. Standing guard at the gate is the very dark elf prince he just researched, ready to confront his rival. RID is instantly captivated by the prince's stylish hybrid uniform, blending Eastern and Western aesthetics. He admires Renate's distinctive culture, a fusion of traditional and contemporary styles that remind him of his previous life. His father's voice echoes in his mind, reminding him that this cultural blend stems from their alliance, urging him to take it all in. Peering out the window, RID feels a rush of joy at the sight of familiar rice paddies, a rare view outside Renata. A wave of nostalgia hits him, prompting thoughts of establishing a trade route to bring rice back home. As they near a grand castle, he steels himself, aware that the princess is waiting for him inside. The massive gates of their destination swing wide, signaling the official beginning of their diplomatic mission. A maid welcomes them at the entrance, stating their accommodations are ready and their host will arrive soon. A sharply dressed dark elf with a monocle introduces himself as Zack, their official guide for the visit. Rid is taken aback to see a familiar face, as Zack clarifies he's just a messenger who has helped them before. Zack mentions that their guest house has been crafted to reflect the style of Rid's homeland. Rid is astonished when Christie reveals their lodgings even feature a lavish hot spring. Thrilled at the thought of a proper bath, Rid's mind transforms the guest house into a luxurious resort. After the lengthy journey, Rid joyfully collapses onto a bed in his new room, relieved to finally be here. Suddenly, he finds himself face to face with a familiar figure in a maid's outfit, Diana, a skilled knight assigned as his guard. Diana confidently assures the flustered boy that he has nothing to fear while under her watch. To his shock, she starts revealing an array of concealed weapons from her uniform, recommending each one. A panicked Rid pleads with her to stop, overwhelmed by her extreme level of preparedness. From afar, Christie observes in confusion, questioning why a knight would depend on such unconventional armaments. Diana explains that as a woman, she employs these weapons to counter the physical disadvantages she faces against male foes. With a serious expression, Diana shares that she did whatever was necessary to become a knight. Christie playfully suggests that all her efforts must have been for Rubens, leaving Diana visibly flustered. A flashback reveals a younger Diana, inspired to train hard after witnessing a tearful Rubens giving his all. As Rid denies being a crybaby, Diana swiftly shifts the topic, formally introducing herself as his maid during their stay. Rid notes her intimidating demeanor, realizing he's meant to overlook her presence despite being instructed to keep her close. He gazes out over the estate, deciding to let her be for now, but will call if anything arises. Meanwhile, an attendant informs Princess Farah that the Baldia delegation has arrived at the guest house. Farah ponders her situation, aware that her marriage and her guard's roles are political maneuvers to eliminate troublesome individuals. The scene shifts to a young dark elf who recalls being told to abandon his training, feeling bitter about being sent away. The young elf, Asna Randmark, vows to perfect his swordsmanship to become the princess's devoted protector. An instructor harshly corrects Princess Farah's stance, reminding her of the grace expected of royalty. Farah quietly apologizes for her error while her guard, Asna, watches in distress. Asna rushes forward, attempting to intervene and asking the instructor to pause. The instructor, Elthea, sharply questions Asna's interference in the princess's royal training. Later, Asna apologizes to Pharaoh, regretting that her own strictness has only added to the princess's burdens. Asna reflects on her demanding schedule, learning imperial customs alongside the princess she was meant to protect. As she spends time with Pharaoh, Asna's sense of duty transforms into a genuine wish to support her. At night, Farah tries to comfort her anxious attendant, insisting that she is managing her challenging life. The princess offers a soft smile, expressing gratitude to Asna for her unwavering concern. Alone, Pharaoh steels herself, convinced she must endure her harsh reality for the sake of her kingdom. Farah forces a smile through her tears, acknowledging it's a bit sad that her parents seem oblivious to her efforts. Her attendant, Asna, discovers the princess collapsed on the floor, calling out to her in alarm. Later, Farah's mother coldly reminds her that her true fiancé is a prince, not the Margrave's son she is about to meet. The princess reflects on her controlled existence, resolving that she alone will determine who deserves her heart. She recalls a secret journey she once took to the Baldia territory, where she got lost while exploring the outside world for the first time. Farah fondly remembers the kind boy who assisted her, wondering if he still exists and wishing for a reunion. Back in the present, Rid is entranced by a breathtaking portrait of a stunning dark elf woman. As Zack inquires if he likes the painting, a knock at the door interrupts their discussion. Christie playfully mocks Rid for being so entranced, leaving him flustered as he denies it. Zack reveals that the woman in the portrait is Elthea, the king's consort, piquing Rid's curiosity even more. Rid is taken aback, discovering that the woman in the painting is the mother of Princess Pharaoh. Embarrassment washes over him as he realizes he was enchanted by the mother of his possible fiancé. Zack points out the striking resemblance, teasing that if Rid is drawn to the mother, the daughter will surely charm him. Ridge cleverly inquires if Zack is against the marriage, while the attendant simply hopes for the princess's joy. He remembers his father's advice, understanding that Renati is split into factions and he must find his allies. Testing the waters, Rid playfully asks if the princess matches her mother's beauty, admitting he might be smitten. He boldly requests Zack's backing, aiming to secure a strong ally within the Renart court. Zack contemplates the boy's daring request, his expression unreadable yet knowing. The attendant agrees to assist, and they solidify their secret partnership with a handshake. Observing from the sidelines, Christie reflects on Reiner's son being full of surprises and wonders about his intentions. Zack admires Rid's keen political acumen, finding himself influenced by the boy's bold appeal. The attendant is unveiled as Zack Liberton, head of his family and a relative of the king's consort, Althea. It's revealed that Zack secretly oversees Renart's intelligence operations, reporting directly to the king. Rid sits opposite the spymaster, weighing the significance of his new, formidable ally's promise. With their alliance established, Zack redirects the discussion to the main event, Rid's meeting with the king. Meanwhile, Princess Farah's guard briefs a stern Prince Rains on the movements of the noble Norris. Norris expresses gratitude to the prince for accepting his proposal, confirming their secret plan is progressing smoothly. The prince is entangled in family drama, clashing with his father over the consort, Althea. A flashback reveals that Rains and Farah are half-siblings, and Norris intends to exploit his ties to the queen to manipulate the prince. The court's intricate loyalties are exposed, showing the emperor's affection for Althea, who harbors disdain for Prince Rhine. Prince Rains remembers how his mother's sorrow has always burdened him. Fury boils within him as he vows never to be a king like his father, whom he blames for her suffering. Norris seizes on the prince's rage, pledging his support in a strategy to control both the king and the consort. Norris delivers a final chilling piece of advice, tightening his grip on the determined yet naive prince. The prince walks alone, his determination solidifying as he accepts Norris's assistance, all to protect his sister. In the shadows, a covert agreement is made, as an operative acknowledges their orders with a subtle nod. The spy master's superior requests an update on the prince, checking the status of their plot. Norris smirks, confirming that everything is unfolding as planned, eagerly anticipating the arrival of the country bumpkin from Baldea. The focus shifts to Princess Farah, who anxiously inspects her new Western-style dress, finding it unfamiliar. Her attendant Asna reassures her that the dress looks lovely, earning a shy yet grateful smile from the young princess. Princess Farah hopes her graceful appearance will be enough to impress her prospective suitor. Her devoted guard, Asna, eagerly assures her that it absolutely will. Neil stands before the princess, praising her breathtaking appearance and promising she will enchant her guest. A relieved Pharaoh readies herself, just as a knock at the door signals an unexpected visitor. Farah's mother, the consort Althea, enters with a serious expression, and the princess quickly thanks her for the dress. Althea coldly reminds her daughter that this suitor is a commoner, not her true royal fiancé. The consort explains that this meeting is merely a trial to assess Farah's worth for a more significant future marriage. As Althea leaves, Asna rushes to Farah's side, concerned for the visibly shaken princess. Asna reassures the princess that she will encounter many candidates, but the final decision will rest solely with her. With a confident tip of her hat, Asna reaffirms her unwavering belief in the princess's judgment. Farah inquires if her guard knows anything about her suitor, but Asna only knows his name. The princess beams, touched by her attendant's kindness and steadfast support. Gazing out the window, Farah thoughtfully repeats Rid's name, a flicker of recognition in her eyes. Meanwhile, the noble Norris approaches the king, seeking permission to advance with their covert plan. Rid's face flashes in his mind as Norris contemplates testing whether this country boy is worthy of their princess. The king grants Norris full authority, who gratefully accepts and vows to manage all the arrangements. With a final reminder to show respect, the king dismisses Norris, who confidently agrees before leaving. Alone, the king reveals his true ambition, to use this marriage to elevate Renati's standing, despite his court's underestimation. Back in his room, Rid touches his cheek, steeling himself for the upcoming formal meeting. He carefully inspects his reflection in the mirror, ensuring he appears presentable for his audience with royalty. Diana, his maid, playfully mocks him, claiming he resembles a young lady ready to greet a prince. A flustered Rid calls out her name, utterly mortified by the comparison. With a smirk, she inquires why he's been nervously checking his reflection all morning. Christy chimes in, encouraging him to embrace his good looks, but Rid shyly insists his formal attire is merely for show. She teasingly pinches his cheek, quipping that if he were a girl, she would have swept him off his feet already. Their playful banter is interrupted when Zack arrives, announcing it's time for the audience and that Reiner is waiting. As they walk, Zack discreetly begins to update Rid on the current political situation, sharing insights from his network. He discloses that a noble named Norris leads the opposition, seemingly having Prince Rhine under his thumb. Rid expresses gratitude for the crucial intel, immediately inquiring about consort Elthea's role in the power dynamics. Zack speculates that Elthea's true intentions diverge from Norris's, suggesting she currently maintains a neutral stance. Zack points out that the main hurdle is Prince Rains, who is entirely under Norris's manipulative influence. Rid wonders how to approach the prince, contemplating whether to win him over as a potential brother-in-law. Zack leans closer, a sly grin on his face, proposing a daring strategy to undermine the prince's confidence. The spy master clarifies that trying to reason with the prince is pointless, while he's infatuated with Norris's schemes. Zack explains that the prince is emotionally volatile, ensnared in a web of contradictions they can exploit. He reassures Rid that this plan has the backing of Renard's pro-alliance nobles, promising to manage the political fallout. Zack then presents a token symbolizing the trust he places in Rid, whom he now regards as a valuable ally. Rid realizes this high-stakes political game is the ideal chance to demonstrate his capabilities. Rid presses for the reason behind the prince's allegiance, but Zack humbly states he cannot disclose such sensitive details. Their conversation concludes as they arrive for the audience, immediately confronted by an impatient, shouting figure. Rid expresses gratitude to the spy master for their lengthy discussion, asking if he will join them for the audience. Zack offers a mysterious smile, saying he looks forward to witnessing Rid's performance, leaving the boy puzzled. Their carriage approaches the main castle, a colossal strategic stronghold where the king awaits. At the entrance, a dark elf guard formally verifies the identity of the Baldia delegation. Reiner calmly confirms their identity and formally requests an audience with the king. The guard informs them of the protocol. All visitors must relinquish their weapons before entering the king's presence. Rid and his entourage stand resolute, their expressions hardening as they brace for the impending confrontation. Reiner decides to proceed with only Rid, Rubens, and Diana, instructing the rest of their group to remain behind. As they traverse a corridor adorned with stunning traditional architecture, Rid is told to leave his belongings behind. Two maids in exquisite kimonos slide open the final doors, announcing that the royal court awaits them inside. Rid's party steps into the grand audience hall, greeted by the stern-faced members of the Renata court. The dark elf nobles observe the newcomers with cold, calculating gazes. Rid stands alongside his father and their guards, presenting a united and determined front. From the shadows, the court examines them with a blend of curiosity and disdain. Reiner gestures for them to move forward, guiding his son into the heart of the political arena. As they walk, Rid notices a subtle yet deliberate detail that feels out of place. He suddenly realizes that only one chair has been set up for their entire delegation. A smug noble explains this was intentional, a calculated slight to acknowledge only Reiner's status. Reiner turns to his son, silently inquiring how he wishes to react to this overt disrespect. With a confident look, Rid assures his father he can manage it, ready to confront the challenge head-on. Rid senses his father is seething with anger over the blatant insult. He glances at his father, unfazed by the hostility, and cheekily wonders if they simply dislike him. Behind him, his two guards are visibly enraged, prepared to defend his honor against the court's affront. He quickly gestures for his overprotective guards to calm down, relieved when they reluctantly comply. His father instructs him to bow his head and wait, and Rid dutifully follows the order. Reiner formally announces their delegation from the Baldi Amar Gravat, presenting themselves before the silent, watchful court. The King of Renart finally speaks, commanding the entire delegation to lift their heads. Rid raises his head to see the King of Renart on his throne, flanked by his consort Elthea, Prince Rhines, and Princess Pharaoh. His gaze meets the hostile glare of Prince Rains and the wide, curious eyes of Princess Pharaoh. Unfazed, Rid meets their stares, his expression a mask of calm and unwavering determination. The Renart monarch greets Reiner with formality. recognizing their long-standing relationship from his throne. Reiner responds with respectful humility, while Rid sizes up the Dark Elf King for the first time. The king expresses his eagerness to meet the boy who could wed his daughter, asking Reiner to introduce him. Rid steps forward, bowing confidently, formally introducing himself and sharing his excitement for the encounter. The king observes that Rid shares the same age as Princess Farah, while Prince Ryan glares at the unexpected bravado. With introductions complete, the king encourages his daughter to step forward and present herself. The young princess begins her introduction, stating her name and title with practiced elegance. As she reveals her name, Pharaoh, Rid is left utterly stunned, a wave of recognition washing over him. Rid quickly kneels, formally greeting the princess he now realizes he has encountered before. Farah gazes at Rid's human ears, a sudden memory igniting as she recalls their past meeting. A montage introduces the royal family, the consort Elthea, Prince Rhines, and Queen Elias. King Elias Renate addresses Rid, expressing his hope for a strong relationship between their families. The king puts Rid on the spot, asking for his thoughts on the marriage proposal before the entire court. Prince Rhaines angrily interrupts, accusing his father of foolishness for posing such a serious question to a child. Rid identifies the noble Norris and realizes he must confront both him and the prince to leave a lasting impression. Norris smugly agrees with the prince's outburst, affirming his influence over the young royal. The king calmly requests their opinions, subtly challenging their blatant defiance. Rid contemplates his next move, deciding to say the one thing his adversaries would despise hearing. With unwavering determination, Rid proclaims his absolute commitment to making the marriage a success. His bold statement sends shockwaves through the court, leaving Farah flustered and the king intrigued. The king outlines the political landscape, explaining that their alliance with Baldea deters their neighbors. He then questions the reliability of the Magnolia Empire, putting Rid in the spotlight before the court. Rid counters that from an enemy's viewpoint, the alliance appears weak, but a marriage would strengthen their bond. He elaborates that this union would allow Baldea to justify defending Renati without waiting for imperial orders. The court nobles reluctantly concede to his reasoning, prompting Rid to seize the moment. Rid asserts that convincing their enemies that an attack on Renardi equates to an attack on Baldea is the ultimate deterrent. Prince Ryan furiously dismisses the argument, but Rid calmly clarifies that the real issue lies in how their enemies view the alliance. The prince is left speechless, unable to comprehend the intricacies of Rid's political strategy. Rid confidently turns to his father, affirming that Baldi's army only acts to defend its territory without direct commands. Reiner addresses the court with calm authority, stating that while Rid is a child, his political assessment is undeniably accurate. Rid cheekily adds that he has additional reasons for the marriage, but he'll keep those under wraps until after the wedding. The king bursts into laughter, completely taken aback by the boy's audacious and clever retort. He muses that Reiner's son is a disturbingly unconventional heir, one who could become a formidable adversary. An infuriated Prince Ryan shouts at his father, dismissing Rid's argument as childish nonsense. The king calmly advises his son to widen his perspective, noting even Reiner acknowledges the boy's sound reasoning. The humiliated prince can only bow his head in silent rage, forced to concede the argument. The king recognizes Rid's sharp intellect, but wonders if his words are supported by martial skill. He then challenges Rid to demonstrate his worth, not just through words, but by showcasing his combat abilities. The scene transitions to a grand arena, setting the stage for the unexpected physical challenge. A bewildered Rid stands in the arena, questioning how his formal meeting with the princess turned into a public duel. His maid, Diana, hands him a wooden practice sword, which Rid gratefully accepts. She explains that while it's a simple weapon, she personally chose it for him to teach his opponent a lesson. Rid wonders why his personal guard is the one providing him with a weapon for the duel. With an intensely fierce expression, Diana urges him to deliver a severe punishment for the disrespect shown to him. As Rid prepares, he realizes the nobles are still plotting, and his opponent has been switched at the last moment. The king formally introduces Rid's opponent, his own son Prince Rhaines, who stands ready for combat. Rid stares in utter disbelief, unable to comprehend that he's been matched against the prince himself. From the sidelines, his retainers enthusiastically cheer for him to defeat the arrogant royal. He suddenly remembers Zack's advice to shatter the prince's confidence for the kingdom's sake. Rid realizes with irritation that the spy master had known this was the plan all along and kept him in the dark. Prince Rain glares at Rid's smug grin, while Norris observes from the sidelines, irritated by the boy's unnervingly calm demeanor. The king officially initiates the duel, stating it will conclude only when one of them yields or can no longer continue. Just before the duel starts, Rid raises his hand, interrupting to propose an idea. He boldly proposes that only the king should determine when the match concludes. Rid insists on no outside interference, a move that only fuels the prince's growing anger. With a sly grin, Rid glances at the nobles, subtly challenging their authority and plans. The king agrees to the terms, confirming the duel will proceed until he decides to stop it. The prince mocks Rid, claiming his defeat is certain, but Rid dismisses the threat as childish banter. Rain sinks to a new low, cruelly mentioning Rid's ill mother to try and rattle him. The prince's harsh taunt hits home, yet he continues his assault, derisively asking if Rid is just a mama's boy. Rid grips the wooden sword tighter, his patience thinning as the prince crosses a line. He stays silent, realizing Norris orchestrated this entire provocation to throw him off balance. The duel kicks off with both rivals locked in a fierce, unwavering stare. From the sidelines, Norris offers his foolish prince one last smug word of encouragement. Rid calmly questions whether the prince is all talk, flipping his taunts back at him. The prince is left speechless, his arrogance completely shattered by the sharp comeback. Fuming from the insult, the prince lunges forward, raising his sword for a furious strike. Rid effortlessly deflects the powerful blow, halting the prince's attack with surprising ease. The prince stares in disbelief, shocked by the sheer force behind Rid's simple block. In one smooth motion, Rid disarms the prince, sending him crashing to the arena floor. The entire Renard court watches in stunned silence as their prince is easily defeated. Rid stands triumphantly over his fallen foe, casting a long shadow across the arena. He presses the tip of his wooden sword against the prince's throat, ending the match in one swift move. With a cold demeanor, Rid mockingly asks the defeated royal if he has already surrendered. Refusing to accept defeat, the humiliated prince scrambles to his feet, seething with anger. Rid casually turns away, telling the prince he won't be so careless in their next encounter. Infuriated by the blatant disrespect, the prince charges forward, intent on reclaiming his honor. Rid once again parries the attack effortlessly, unimpressed by the prince's clumsy swordplay. He calmly points out that the prince's simplistic strategy is evident on his face. The prince naively believes he can win through sheer force, declaring victory is his if he just pushes through. Rid effortlessly blocks the prince's sword, showcasing his superior skill. With a single decisive blow, Rid sends the prince and his weapon flying across the arena. He aims his sword at the fallen royal, mocking him for being all talk and no action. The Renard court erupts in shocked whispers, unable to believe their eyes. Princess Farah watches in wide-eyed amazement, while her mother remains stoically silent. Rid coldly asks the dazed prince if he has finally come to his senses. He looms over his opponent, stating the vast difference in their power should now be clear. The humiliated prince clenches his fist, unwilling to accept his defeat even as he's told to stay down. He struggles to comprehend losing to the son of a country bumpkin from Magnolia. Rid then reveals his own sword was tampered with, questioning if the prince feels any shame for his unfair advantage. Rid angrily demands the prince rise, his fury ignited by the personal insults. The prince can only stare in disbelief, completely shaken by Rid's sudden intensity. Rid coldly observes that if the prince won't fight, he should just accept his loss and remain down. The prince struggles to his feet, recalling past humiliations and his dream of becoming a worthy king. Determined not to be seen as weak, the prince rises with renewed fury, vowing to defeat his opponent. The prince's eyes blaze with rage, reflecting the image of a calm and composed Rid. Rid notices the shift in his opponent's gaze, ready to confront the prince's reckless, renewed assault. As they clash again, Norris observes from the sidelines with a cold, calculating expression. Rid once more outmaneuvers the prince, delivering a powerful strike that sends him reeling. The prince is sent flying, his face a mask of utter shock at being so thoroughly overpowered. Princess Pharaoh and her guard stand in shocked silence as Rid completely takes control of the duel. The princess grapples with the reality of her brother's total defeat, while her guard admires Rid's strength. The prince lies vanquished, understanding that the disparity in their skills should have concluded the match long ago. Asna clarifies Rid's true intention to showcase his might without either losing or utterly overpowering the prince. A noble in the stands realizes they can only await the king's ultimate decision. Under the arena's spotlight, Rid ponders whether he should compel the prince to acknowledge his defeat. Princess Pharaoh beams with relief, understanding that Rid fights without any malicious intent. Asna discerns Rid's aim to impart a lesson to the prince, but her intense focus captures the princess's attention. The prince recalls being disarmed and held at sword point repeatedly, his humiliation intensifying. Rid is taken aback by the prince's unexpected tenacity and once more asks the defiant royal if he's ready to concede. The prince yells in exasperation, labeling Rid a monster as he struggles against the overwhelming force. Rid coolly refutes the monster label, suggesting instead that he embodies something far more frightening. He leans closer, proposing that from the prince's viewpoint, he must appear as a demon. With another effortless maneuver, Rid sends the prince crashing to the ground once more. Towering over his opponent, Rid opts for a different approach, questioning the prince's motives behind his earlier insults. He reminds the fallen royal that he was the one who uttered those words and must now face the repercussions. Rid pointedly inquires if the noble Norris was the one who instigated the provocation. His suspicions are validated as he realizes the prince was merely a pawn in a larger scheme. Despite his defeat, the prince angrily vows to never yield, regardless of the consequences. Rid calmly raises his hand, ready to bring the one-sided duel to a conclusive end. With the prince defeated at his feet, Rid lifts his hand, and to the astonishment of the entire court, declares his own loss.